Talk Zone presents the Geek Speak Radio Show with your hosts, Henry and Romo. Your top spot for everything entertainment and pop culture, including TV, movies, comics, casting news, and more. Now, here are your hosts, Henry and Romo.
Hi, everybody. We're here. Welcome back. Welcome to the Geek Speak Radio Show. So, the other day, actually, we had a lot of fun with toys, things that Romo likes to play with.
Yep,
still.
That's true.
I still have a few of them, like I said. Today, I figured it's my show. I get to do what I want to do today. Romo gets to do what he grew up reading. We're going to do a lot of comic books, but first, before we do that, comic books get turned into movies, now also into TV shows.
Oh, that's cool. Yes.
And there's one person who is in charge of that. We're going to talk to him in about 2-3 seconds. Let me go back a little bit with Romo. When you guys were growing up, what Marvel cartoons do you remember when you were growing up?
Spider-Man.
Well, wait, which Spider-Man? The original, the 60s one, or the later one?
Both.
Yeah, I like the 60s one better myself.
Oh, really? I actually like the 90s version.
Well,
they're
to
all
me,
good.
Yeah,
I mean,
to me
depends on
back
what you
then,
grew up.
the 60s one was like watching the comic book coming to life in front of me.
Oh, cool.
Peter Parker looked like Peter Parker. Even sounded like, I know it's a comic book, you can't really hear it, but what I thought he would sound like sounded exactly like the voice actor that we heard on the cartoon.
That's cool.
So let's forward to today. This generation is going to get some new cartoons, some new shows, and the person in charge of that is on the phone with us. His name is, you all know him, Jeph Loeb. Jeph.
How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, first of all.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So first, let me ask you, when did Marvel decide that we need a TV division, and especially when it decided to put you at the head?
Well, they both sort of happened at the same time. I'll just give you sort of a quick, brief history of how we got to where we are. A lot of people know Marvel through its animation. You guys were just talking about the Spider-Man show, the one of the 60s, the one of the 90s. One of everyone's favorites is the X-Men from the 90s. But remarkably enough, those shows were not really produced by Marvel. They were shows that were produced by other people that Marvel had some input on, but they're not really our own home game. And so about 2 years ago, this was obviously before my time, but I was working over in publishing, they decided to put a toe in the water, and that the first one that they went after is a show that skews a little younger, called Superhero Squad, that's on Cartoon Network. But then the real big jump was to decide to get in and do the Avengers. The Avengers is going to be on Disney XD, which is their what we like to refer to as the brother channel to the Disney Channel. And it premieres on October 20th at 8:30 at night. And it's absolutely insanely great. And it's the Avengers that you guys know. It's the hardcore group of Cap and Thor and Iron Man and Hulk, going up against just the biggest threats that you can imagine. We showed the pilot episodes in San Diego and up in Toronto. We'll be showing them again in a couple of weeks at the New York Comic Con. And people have just been going insane, tearing up seats, cheering, laughing, doing everything that they're supposed to do, which is incredibly rewarding. And then the second show that we'll be doing, that we've just recently announced, is Ultimate Spider-Man. So you guys were talking about Spider-Man. This will really be the first time that sort of the in-house guys are actually going to be putting together a show. And so when you talk about something that's going to look like a Marvel show, and you talk about, that it should sound like Peter Parker, I completely get what you're saying. Yeah. That's the thing that's got us super excited about it. And what we have announced and what we can talk about is that Paul Dini, who's, won Emmys and, comes to us from Batman Animated and never had worked in the Marvel Universe before, just leapt at this opportunity to write the pilots and be one of the creative people on the show. The Men of Action guys, Joe Kelly, Joe Casey, Duncan Rouleau and Steve Siegel, obviously, names that we all know from comic books, but also, the guys that created Ben 10 and created Generator Rex, two big hit shows. are the story editors and writers, and are dealing with the sort of the day-to-day of working on the show. And then we're extremely lucky also to bring in, the person who, in many ways, reinvented Spider-Man for a new generation, and that's Brian Michael Bendis, who's come on as a creative consultant. And we just had this great, big, huge writer summit literally earlier in the week, where we started talking about the whole first season, and it was incredibly exciting. I mean, one of the fun parts about my job is that I get to work with these guys, a lot of whom I know from the publishing side, but now we're working in a whole brand new field where we can actually bring these stories, for want of a better explanation, to life. And so it's just great fun on that side. So that's a little bit of the history, and I did get ahead of myself and started talking about animation. But so basically, when animation started and it felt like it was really going in a good, positive place, we all started talking about the possibility of there being Marvel live action television. And, one thing that I really do give credit to Marvel about is that, when they do something, they take their time in order to get it right. And it's what was the best way for us to get into live action television. And when you look at what Marvel accomplished with Marvel Studios, in that, there had been Spider-Man, and that was being made over at Sony, and the X-Men movies are made over at Fox, and, how could we make something that was our own? And so, they created the studio, and Kevin Feige just doing an awesome job over there, and, to come out of the box and to make Iron Man as the first Marvel movie, you can really see how high the bar was set for us if we were going to do something in live action television. And then, while we were all looking around to see what was the best way of doing that, then the acquisition happened. Disney then bought Marvel. And what that provided for this dream of someday doing live action television suddenly became a reality, like literally overnight. Because Disney, so people know, owns ABC and owns ABC Family and owns ESPN. And so immediately there are all these networks that you could then create shows for and put them on the air, which is a really big deal in television. You just don't want to be making stuff that doesn't get on the air. And so having that relationship, which has been terrific, was the first step. And then once that happened, Marvel started looking around to see, okay, well, we need somebody on our side who's going to interface and partner with ABC in order to make these television shows and to pick the right properties and get the right producers and writers and showrunners and all the little details that go into making a television show. And it was one of those rare opportunities that I was incredibly honored to be offered. And it really grew out of, I've had obviously a long relationship with them on the publishing side, writing everything from the X-Men to the Hulk. But I always had this other career that was going on simultaneously, whether it was making movies like Teen Wolf or Commando or getting into television and working on, just from my point of view, the best in the genre kind of shows, going from Smallville to Lost to Heroes. It really was, 8 years and hundreds of television shows of being able to really learn that craft of what's the best way to tell these stories, not only from a creative point of view, but also from a production point of view. And so I've always had sort of the two sides of my brain. One side was writing comic books, the other side was working in television, and along came this opportunity, and it wasn't at some small little operation. It was Marvel coming and saying, here's an opportunity for you to be able to take both sides, to take your peanut butter and your jelly and put them together, and be able to make, hopefully, television that has the same kind of spirit and humor and integrity that the worldwide audience and the fans have come to know from Marvel Comics. And that's really the challenge. And it's something that it's only been 3 months. But, we've got just a great team and we're out there, getting ready to go.
Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.